Blog Talk.
Welcome to Love Life Heart Confessions with intuitive heart healer, the Love Guru, Blaire Allison. Blaire can be found on the web at loveguru.net and datingtipsfordudes.com. And now your host, Blaire Allison.
Hi everybody, welcome to Love Life Heart Confessions. This is the Love Guru, Blaire Allison. And welcome. I just got such exciting news. One of my girlfriends, actually probably my closest girlfriend that I've known for the longest time, I grew up with her, she just had her baby. So I was preparing for the show, and I got totally distracted because I got this news maybe 5-10 minutes ago, and I'm really, really excited. I was excited throughout her pregnancy, but then hearing the news that she actually had the baby really came over me. Like, we're talking about tears and everything, which I was surprised because I've been a little bit anti having kids lately. So we'll see how this experience of my friend having a baby and then, me being around her and her child, it was a girl, we'll see how that changes the Blairster. We'll see what happens. Should be interesting. So let's see. Today we have a very interesting show. We have an interesting guest. I'm looking forward to speaking with her. Her name is Nika, and today we're going to be talking to her about the topic of getting married. And, we're brought up in this society that it's expected that you get to a certain age, you find your Prince Charming or your Princess Charming, and then you couple up and you get married and you're, swept away and it's happily ever after. But my guest today says, she doesn't really think that getting married is part of her makeup. And I'm just, and she wrote a book also. This is a special guest that we have today. Typically, I just bring on, everyday people, and they're somewhat anonymous. Whereas today, my guest is not anonymous. Her name is Nika Beeman, and she actually wrote a book, which she'll tell us about it too. It's called "I Didn't Wait This Long," or "I Didn't Work This Hard to Just Get Married." I think I might have screwed up that title. She'll help us when she's on the line here. So we're going to talk about a couple of different things with her, but we're going to definitely dive into her private life because you guys know how I like to do that. And that's what we do every week here on Love Life Heart Confessions. Each week I bring on a person, a real person who shares the honest truth about what's going on in their love life. Because a lot of times in our love lives we feel that we have to keep secrets. That things happen that we have to keep private, and usually that stuff eats us up. It's something about we need our privacy in our relationships or what's happening to us, and really the truth is you're not alone. So any feelings that you're having, any thoughts that are coming up for you, whether, like I said, hey, I've been a little bit anti having kids lately. So I'm not the only person who thinks, maybe kids are not for me. Maybe I don't want to have kids. I love kids. I actually really, really love kids, and they love me too. Ever since I was young, kids were always drawn to me. Like, I would always hold my cousins. When we were young, I would hold them until they would go to sleep. And even now, I play with kids on the playground on, like, a regular basis. Just, random kids. I'm that random person. that the mothers give me funny looks like, who are you and why are you playing with my kid? But as for me having my own kids, I'm not really sure about that. So am I the only one who thinks that? Am I the only one who wonders about that? No. So we're going to be bringing Nika on today, and I'm excited to have her because she's one of the people in my tribe. I'm one of the people in her tribe, and I've been learning more and more about her over the last couple of weeks and the stuff that she writes about and talks about, and just feel like we talk about the same things and we think about the same things, and it's really wonderful when you could meet somebody or meet another person that's in your tribe, another person that's like you, questioning the status quo. So before we get to her, I want to let you know a little bit of what's in store for our shows in the next couple of weeks. Next week, we have one of my teachers, one of my spiritual teachers is coming on, and I'm excited to have her to be on. I'm actually really honored that she said yes to my interview request. And she's in her late 40s. I need to check on that. But she's talking about how, normally in relationships, we usually hear how the guy calls the shots. This guy has this power job, and he has to travel for work, and the woman will either travel with him, or she has to be understanding that he wants to go here and he wants to go there, and it's business. Whereas her relationship, the dynamics are, they're either flipped or they're equal. And she was away in the Amazon for 2 months. She was studying some shamanism, and she does spiritual work just like I do. So she felt like it would help her spiritual growth. She felt a calling to go to the Amazon for 2 months and learn with shamans, and she went out there. And her husband was totally understanding of that. And we're going to explore, how did you get your husband to say yes to that? And what was his reaction? And how do you attract a man like that is really so open to you following your dreams, that lets you be free? So that's next week, Tuesday. I'm sorry, I keep on saying that. It's Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. And then the week after that, we're going to be doing an episode about being single and horny. What do you do when you're single and horny? I'm going to talk about that, and that's one of my teaching shows. I'm going to be talking about that, and I'm going to be taking your questions. So you could call in with your love life questions. Now, I have another good announcement. My new Travel Girl magazine, as you guys know, I'm a contributing writer for Travel Girl magazine, and the new issue is out on the stands. And I have a really fun article in there. It's called Husband Hunting for the Holidays. And I haven't seen the final, since I've handed it in to my editor, I haven't seen the final article in print just yet. I haven't gotten my copies just yet. But it talks about how will your mate measure up. And I give you a little bit of a checklist. And I think it's a really fun article, so go check that out. Travel Girl magazine. It's a national magazine, so all what you need to do is just go into Borders or Barnes and Nobles and ask, where is Travel Girl? And then you'll see my articles listed on the front of the issue. You'll see it right away. So one other announcement before we do get to our guest here. I teach you guys about love. I also teach about sexuality. And the way that I teach about sexuality is more from the spiritual side. It's more about intimacy rather than techniques. Now, I have another company. It's called Metro Event Planners. And as some of you know, we do blowjob classes and striptease classes and lap dance classes in New York City and in New Jersey. Now, over the last year or so, I have been going through a transformation myself, and so have the classes. So we are no longer offering just these strictly technique classes. They're more, these classes now that I'm teaching, which I still have the blowjob class, I still have the striptease class, I'm teaching them more from the love guru side of things, more about connecting with your partner, being a conscious lover, rather than just technique after technique after technique. Sure, yeah, we'll go over some of that stuff. You guys get material to go home with to study. But you could go to the store to go read techniques. It's not about being a hoochie mama in order to keep your man. It's about having intimacy with him, and that's what cultivates your relationship. So go check out metroplanners.com. I do private events, so if you're doing a bachelorette party or a birthday party or girls' night out, I'll come out and teach for you guys. I also have 2 new classes that I just launched within the last couple of days. One is called Awaken in Your Sexuality, and the other one is called The Power of the Penis. And I really like that name. I laugh at random times thinking about how much fun my job is, how creative I get to be, and I could put out these crazy titles of classes just roll with it. And you guys like it, and you come, and you learn, and I just think that that is like the greatest gift. It makes me feel so grateful for what I do this lifetime. So, okay, so whatever. That's metroplanners.com. Come check me out there. While you're listening to this show, please click the favorite button. Why? Well, of course, it makes me feel good that you favorited my show, but besides that, you get an email reminder each week to tune in when exactly it's coming on, and you get a reminder also if you can't listen live that you could just come and listen to the archives. So that's the way that works. And also, just a little FYI, if somebody's listening and you work in the entertainment field or you want to get into the entertainment field, I am seeking somebody to help me produce this show. I am moving to another network. Well, actually, I might keep the show here too, but I'm going to be adding on another network or 2 other networks. And I need someone to help me produce it and book guests. So if you would like to learn from me how to do this, if you have no experience in entertainment, I could teach you. I have a background in TV and radio. Before I started my own business, I used to work in the entertainment field. So I could teach you. Or obviously, if you're coming with a background from entertainment, all the better. Please shoot me an email. Let me know how you'd like to help and some information about your background, okay? And you could contact me through Blog Talk Radio or through my website, loveguru.net. All righty. So we are ready to bring on Nika. Are you there?
I am here. How are you?
Yay, I'm good. Well, thanks for joining us here. Thanks for joining me. So now I want to, first off, tell everybody what the name of your book is called.
The title of the book is I Didn't Work This Hard Just to Get Married.
Right. Okay, I didn't work this hard just to get married. So tell us, I think we're going to kind of jump a little bit back and forth between talking about the book and talking about your personal love life. But what inspired this book? Is there a personal story behind this?
No, I wish I could say that it was my own personal story or something that I thought of, but no, I'm a journalist by trade, and so last year a lot of people were talking about the state of America, the state of black America, the state of women, and so one of the things they were talking about was the fact that women were doing so well these days, but unfortunately men weren't doing well. Men were disproportionately hit with the economy, the recession, and so more of them were laid off, and so women became the biggest breadwinners, and that did get me wondering what happens to women who are more successful than the men that they date or men that they're looking to date. Can men really handle that? And do these women think that they would give up their success in lieu of finding a man? And what I found overwhelming is that most women said, no, I work this hard and I do all the things I do in my life because this is who I'm supposed to be. And if I'm going to find a man, he's going to accept me exactly as I am. But what I didn't want was a whole bunch of women that were exactly the same. Like you said, I think that a lot of times when you're not what people consider the typical woman, they think that you're odd or something's wrong with you, and a lot of times we start to believe that about ourselves. So I really went through great pains to find 17 different women, all of which who ultimately love what their jobs are, very successful, very career-oriented, and who at some point would like to find a man, but they're not dying to find one. They're not dying to get married. They like their lives just the way they are. They want somebody who complements them rather than somebody who completes them. And what we found was that there are women who are just like you who wonder if they ever have – there's actually one story in the book about a woman who wasn't sure she had a biological clock, and it's called Even a Broken Clock is Right Twice a Day. And she says she doesn't have one. She was one of those women who loves children, wouldn't mind even dating a man who has children, but not sure she actually wants to have children of her own. And so all of her friends and everybody thought she was odd and thought that was the reason why she wasn't married. And so you'll find that so many women, even the women in my book, have so many interesting reasons why they're single at this point, but they've gotten there so many different ways, but mostly because we're all very different, we're all very unique, and a lot of us think some, I guess, out-of-the-box ideas about our personal lives. We're just afraid to tell other people. So I wanted people to see that there are other people out there just like them who have the same thoughts and the same feelings and may also be single and are still out there looking, but they're actually happy with their lives just as they are.
So let me ask you something, because the subtitle of your book is you're focused on black women, or, is that probably politically incorrect? I don't think I'm really so politically correct. African American? I mean, what am I supposed to say?
No, I mean, it is called Successful Single Black Women. The reason why we did black women was that 71% of black women aren't married. And actually, but, you know, it's a marriage crisis in this country. 51% of all women are not married. So it's not just black women. We're just disproportionately hit by it. But all women, more than half of us, are single. And for a lot of us, it's not by choice. It's just the way circumstances have worked out. And I think a lot of people forget that. We just wanted to look at the hardest hit part of the population and see if they're even more bitter about the situation than other women. But the reality is that when you listen to their stories, I think when people, especially even look inside the book, I actually go to great pains to not describe what they look like or to point out the fact that they're African American, because they're actually great statistics and information about all women. So that you can see, sadly, it's all women. All women are having a hard time finding Mr. Right. If he's in fact out there, he's hiding pretty well, because almost all women are having a hard time finding him. And I guess the saddest testament is that even for those who find him, half of them will actually get divorced. And so it's not like, unfortunately, we all run off with that happy ending, because even half of the people who get married will end up divorced. And so there's really something going on, even though it doesn't seem to be reflected in any of the books or movies or stories that we hear, that people seem to be shying away from getting married. And the question is why? Because everybody, like you said, we're traditionally raised to believe we're supposed to get married. So the question is, why are so many people trying to buck tradition these days? And if that happens to you, if you find yourself single beyond the age where you thought you would be, how do you go on to have a happy life and have all the things you always wanted without feeling bad or guilty or weird because you're doing it all by yourself?
Yeah. I love this stuff. Right. So you're like, yeah, you're saying everything that's good to me. So tell me, what was the reason why you didn't? Is it just, you know, the reporter side of you? Like, what was the reason why you didn't put your story in there? Because we're going to get to your story, and you do have a story. So what was the reason?
Yeah, my story isn't in it because, you know, the funny thing about men and women is that we're incredibly hard on women. The funny part was that we originally were going to also put pictures of women in the book. When I first started the book, we were going to put pictures.
Oh, that's bad
news. And we actually
had
some men read the stories, and like you said, there are no physical descriptions in there, so you don't know these women are black, white, or indifferent. You certainly don't know what they look like. And yet there were people who read the stories and said, she sounds fat to me, just based on her story. And so we didn't include pictures, and what we found was that people were naturally biased. And a lot of times if people heard my story, even though my story's not in the book, I found that even in reviews and reactions to it, they go, oh, she must be doing that just to make herself feel better, or she's doing that because she's anti-marriage or anti-men. She's writing this book to justify her life. And so people tended to believe that the reason why you're doing it is because you need to make excuses. And for me, I've never felt like I need to make an excuse for the fact that I'm single over 35. Yeah, I think like everybody else, I mean, especially I went to a Catholic college and all of those things, and I had boyfriends, so I think I always assumed that I'd be married by now. But when I realized that I wasn't, I just had to reinvent the plan. And that wasn't something I ever, thankfully, never was made to feel guilty about. My parents never pressured me to get married. My friends really didn't. And so for me, it was just a natural transition. Okay, well, I'm not going to stay in this miserable spot, so what do I do to change my life? And I was okay with that. But what I found was, especially as my 15-year college reunion came up last year, that my girlfriends weren't so fine with it. All of our male friends from college were all married. And then most of the women weren't. And I found that a lot of the women felt like there's something wrong with me, and a lot of them were afraid or embarrassed to go to the reunion because they didn't have somebody to have on their arm. And I thought there's got to be more women out there than just like these, 5 or 10 people. And maybe if they see them, they won't feel so bad about the fact that this is their life, because they're all super educated, attractive, fun people. They just feel bad because they're missing that one thing, a guy.
Yeah. So tell me, like, what, you said you had, obviously you had boyfriends over the years, and so, like, what happened that, how do you end up, like, past a certain age? I mean, you have a boyfriend now, so why is, when you were younger, you were thinking, yeah, you wanted to get married, or you were thinking, no, I wouldn't, or...
I like the idea of marriage. My parents have been together 43 years, so I guess if you grow up in a house where people have always been together since they were teenagers, of course, you assume you're going to get married because that's just the way it works. You meet somebody, you fall in love, and you get that happy ending, right? You have 3 kids, you move to the suburbs, and, you know, life is good. And so, yeah, I think I always thought that, you know, and I had a great boyfriend in high school, and I just saw him again after 20 years, so that was cool.
Did he look good?
Yeah, he looked great, actually. He looked great, actually. He's a better man than I thought that he would be, and so that was very cool to find out. But he's also married, ladies. He's married, and he has wonderful children. And he loves his children, so he's a good person. But we didn't work out. I was a different person then, and we certainly didn't work out then, but I'm glad I got to meet him again in my life. And so after him, I really spent most of the rest of high school. I was heartbroken. He broke my heart. I was heartbroken, and so I spent most of high school pretty much single. I mean, I went on, like, single dates here and there, and then I got to college, and I dated everybody. I was excited about the fact that, hey, there are a whole bunch of different guys here. And I had a great time in college. And then I, you know, dated a guy in college or after college, all through college, for almost 6 years. And, of course, I thought I would marry him. He was the first man I ever loved. And I thought we would grow old together. We worked at the same job. And he even gave me a ring. So I thought that, you know, that was going to be it. That was going to be my life. He had different plans. By the time we turned 25, he thought maybe he wanted to see other people. And so
over the 6 years of you guys dating, just as like a side note here, over the 6 years of you guys dating, didn't you guys talk about getting married, and like did that conversation just never come up?
You know, I realized then that that's when I was weird, because he would talk about it, and he was probably more emotional. I mean, I tell people sometimes, which is probably the worst story, but I guess I probably shouldn't tell it, but at the same time I will. The worst story that I think I ever, you know, had was when we broke up, and he said to me, and I was upset, and I was crying, and he said to me, I never thought you'd cry if I left you. And I thought, what a horrible thing to say, that you spent 6 years with somebody and they really didn't think they meant that much to you. And I realized there was something about me that I had shut down at some point, that it wasn't that I didn't necessarily want to get married or I didn't want to marry him. I just felt like I had so many other things to accomplish in my life that eventually I would get around to it. I never thought about the fact that maybe he wanted to do that then, or maybe he wanted something different. I just thought we were just very young, and to me we were just too young. There were so many things that we needed to do as individuals that for me marriage wasn't a priority. So, you know, it wasn't for me, and I don't think that it realistically was for him either, but at the time he thought that it was, but it was something that I should have considered. But you make mistakes when you're younger, and you don't learn to communicate in relationships, and so I think that, you know, for us it was a question of timing, and it was a question of youth, and it was, you know, and it was a lot of things. It was not really knowing what I wanted. I wanted him at the time, but I really didn't know what that meant, and I didn't know what that meant for me. I knew that I wanted to write books. I knew that I wanted to move to New York. I knew that I wanted to do a lot of things, and I did all of those things. I just did them without him. The best part of that story is, too, that we're really good friends, and he lives up the street from me, and he's going to have his first baby in a couple of months. And I was at his wedding with his wife, and we're great. We're really good friends. We talk all the time. We just didn't work out. And I still wear the ring that he gave me every day. He doesn't think I do, but I do. Just on the other hand.
So then what happened, like, after you guys broke up? Because right now you are dating somebody, right?
Right. We broke up he and I broke up about a decade ago. And so after that, I dated a few people here and there, but I really didn't want a serious relationship because I didn't think that I was cut out for one. I thought, obviously, there's something wrong with me that I'm not, like, pressed about getting married now. And I also thought that, you know, I loved him, and maybe he was the only one that I would ever meet and ever love because, of course, that's how it works out. My parents only met each other and married each other, so maybe I screwed this up. And so I didn't think there was someone else. But then I met my boyfriend about 8 years ago, and, you know, and I was 4 years older. It was exactly wrong for me. We worked at the same job, again, something I said I would never do. He was 4 years younger than me, something I thought I would never do. And, you know, and I didn't think he would accept my life. I mean, again, I'm really good friends with my ex-boyfriend. We live up the street. We spend a lot of time together, and I thought, my life is just crazy. I'm not sure that he'll want to fit into this life. But he did, and he fit in fine. You know, he fit in just fine. And so 8 years later, he's still here. And now we live together, but that's only 2 months old, so we'll see. But
wow, like that, for dating for so long and then just finally moving in.
Right.
And, you know, because I was, like, looking over the our email correspondence, and it was like, hey, I don't know if really marriage is a part of my makeup, but then it was like another comment of like, hey, maybe now I am ready to get married to him. So kind of like, where do you stand on the marriage? Like, what are your marriage thoughts as of now?
I still am not sure that I just want to get married. I'm not one of those people who just wants to get married. I suppose if I just wanted to get married, I could have found a dude and gotten married by now. I always wanted to marry the right person who fit my life at the right time. And I honestly believe that at this point, he is the right person at the right time that really fits my life. I accept him for exactly who he is, and I think that he accepts me for who I am, all the complications and all the drama later. I think that he does. And so to me, that is the right person at the right time. But it took a long time to get to that point. But I was in no rush because I wasn't in a rush just to get married. I was in a rush to get it right. And so if I have to get married, I'd like to do it once. Is he in the same spot? I can't honestly say. I don't know that he's a person who ever really wants to get married. But then he didn't ever want to live with anybody, and eventually he decided that this is what he wanted to do. So if I'm asking somebody for a lifetime, am I willing to wait longer for him to figure out whether this is where he wants to be? Sure. Because I see no rush. If we're going to be together, then we just are. And that's okay with me. But I could see why other people would go, no, that's not okay. But it's okay with me because I love the life that we have together, ring or not.
So are you able, like, how old are you? Are you okay disclosing that? Because I know you said over 35.
Right, yeah, no, I'll be 37. Yay.
Okay. So I mean, this is like basically you're just kind of living in the present moment, it sounds like. Like when he wanted to move in, then he moved in. I mean, were you feeling like you wanted to take another step with him before that? Because 8 years is just really long time.
Yeah, but I think you go through periods. I mean, I think that, anybody who's been in any long-term relationship, be it marriage or any other relationship, will tell you that it ebbs and flows. I mean, when I first met him, of course, I was over the moon, and at some point we had lots of fights, and, and it was horrible, and you go, like, can I do this? And, and then you realize, yes, I still love this person because I can forgive just about anything. And then, you go through points where we went through a point where we were separated. He got a job offer in D.C. My life was here. I mean, I, at that point, already owned my house, and I had my job, and I had my career, and so moving to D.C. without a ring didn't make any sense to me. I wasn't going to give up my life for somebody who couldn't promise me a new life. That just didn't make any sense to me. And so he went, and we visited back and forth, but he was there for 2.5 years, and so that takes its toll. And one day, I guess he said that it hit him that he didn't want to, wonder whether we were going to be together the next month or not. He decided he was going to find a job back in New York, and he would come back for me, and that's exactly what he did. But when he came back more than a year ago, that wasn't enough for me because, like you said, after 6-7 years, I thought, okay, you're coming back for me. What does that mean? I mean, does that mean that you've decided you want to get married? He said, no, I just decided that I want to be with you. Yeah, but then you can't live in my house because I don't want to play house with somebody who's not sure if this is where they want to be. And so he got his own apartment and he moved somewhere else. And we visited, just the same. And then when his lease was up 3 months ago, before that, he said, I want to live with you.
So were you having an open relationship before that? Like that, were you guys just like not really super committed?
No, I mean, I think that, no, I mean, for, the first few years, no. We were certainly not all that committed because he was honest enough to say to me that he wasn't sure that he wanted a girlfriend or wanted a committed relationship. That was a choice that he made, and that was fine with me because at that point I wasn't sure that I wanted a serious relationship either. But no, I mean, it's certainly after a couple of years that we were together, that was it. I mean, I was with him and he was with me, and I certainly have always been nothing but, committed to the person I'm with. That is, a ring or a piece of paper doesn't mean anything to me. If I decide this is the person that I love, then that's where I want to be.
Yeah, but you were saying, like, when he first came back or whatever about, like, not moving in with you because...
Yeah, he just didn't live with me. I mean, it was just he and I, but we just didn't live together. I mean, I just decided that, if he didn't want to get married or take things to the next, what seemed to me the next logical step to me, then he needed to live on his own for more time. That's obviously something he wanted to do. I wasn't interested, and I'm not still interested in playing house with somebody indefinitely if they're not sure this is where they want to call home. So, and he's aware of that. I mean, love has nothing to do with it. You can love anybody. It doesn't mean you can live with them. It doesn't mean you're going to stay with them. I love him, but, at some point, enough is enough. You have to make a decision. You either have to decide you're all in or you're all out. I don't know when that point will be when I'll decide I've had enough or it's been too long. But I know that obviously it's getting closer because I go, okay, how long am I going to do this now? Now we have a home together, and we buy things together, and moving things around in the house so that you've got room for your stuff. How long are we going to do this?
Right. And any thoughts as far as like kids and things like that? I mean, let's talk about the biological clock. You're 37 now. You're going to be 37, you said. So how does that work? Do you want to have a family?
Well, I probably can't have children. I mean, I have a chronic condition, so I probably can't have children. So coming to terms with that, I think, has made a lot of it a lot easier as well. But even if I could, even if I can pull it off, again, I don't want to just have children. I want to have children with the person that I love. And so until we have a solid relationship and have decided that that's what we want to do, that we definitely want to be together forever, then no, I don't want to just have children for the sake of having children. And biology has nothing to do with that. If I want to be a mother, I can always adopt children. There's certainly a lot of children in the world who need a home and who need a parent. So I'm not as worried about that. What I'm worried about is when I decide to have children, that I have children with the man who wants to be the father of my children. And so that's all I'm concerned with. I don't really look at the numbers and go, okay, 37 now, so we've got to get married now so we can have this baby. No, I would rather him say, I know I love you, this is where I want to be, and I want you to be the mother of my children rather than just have children, because I presume if I wanted to have children, I could have had one of those by now too. I just wanted always to do it the way that I saw my life working out.
Mhm. And you don't play any math games as far as okay, I'm going to be 37, and if I have a kid now or whatever, that makes them, when they're 10, I'm going to be 47, and you don't play that little math game in your head?
No, I mean, I do joke with him that I'm not going to be 50 chasing a baby around the house. I don't care if we adopt them or have them. I'm not going to be 50, I'm not going to be 50 chasing an infant around the house. That's not going to happen. I can barely take care of myself at this point. So 10 years from now, it's going to be a sad, sad thing, and nobody wants their grandparents showing up at the school and being like, that's mom and dad. So that's, that's not really cute, and that's not going to happen. But no, I mean, I just said, if I can eke out one before 40, that would be a good day. If I don't, then, we'll figure out, if we decide we want to have a family together, we'll figure out a way to have a family together. If he's not part of the picture, come 40, then I'll do it on my own, because I've always seen myself as being a mother, and so I don't have a problem with that either. I'll figure it out. But no, I think after 40, I'll have to make other choices in terms of whether I'm going to have a child or adopt a child. But before that, no, I don't really stress it. I figure it'll happen if it's supposed to happen, and that'll be it.
I think because I'm wondering, so you're saying, so if we were talking 2 years from now, and it was going to be or 3 years from now or whatever, before your 40th birthday, I mean, that's the cutoff for you as far as making these decisions. And I think that's a really it's a big issue these days for women who are career women and still single and getting older and things like that. It's when do you make that call? Is it by the time you're 35? Is it right before your 40th birthday? So
I think it depends on what you have in mind for your life. I mean, for me, I say 40 because a lot of my 30s, like I said, I have a chronic illness. For a lot of my 30s, I was sick. I could barely take care of myself, and he's done a great job of taking care of me. And so for me, as I get healthier and stronger and those things, I want to do it when I'm at the peak of my health, when I'm at, when I was still young enough to chase them around. Now I already have the house, I have the car, I have the job, and so I can physically and feasibly take care of a child by myself. And so that would be, if he's not part of the picture, I could do that by that point. And it gives you enough time, if you're thinking about it, in order to make, plans. You have to decide, God forbid something happened to you, who's going to take care of your kid? And I think that children do need, father figures, whether we think that a man is necessary or not. I think that, statistically it proves that they are necessary. So if it's just surrounding myself with my friends or, somebody else to make sure that my child has all the things that it needs, no matter how it gets here, but that they have all the people that they need in their lives. That's something that I need to take time and plan and work out. And so it wouldn't be feasible for me to just say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, because I haven't had any of those things in place. But at least setting some kind of deadline in mind, in my brain, allows me to get other things in a row so that when that time comes, I'm prepared to move forward and do what I need to do to have the life that I want to have.
Right, okay. So, yeah, I guess the question comes down to is, like, how long are you waiting with this one guy? Because I would think that there would be, I mean, I hear these stories a lot, and I would think that there would be, like, a little bit of anxiety as far as, like, hey, we're either moving together, we're moving forward together as far as, like, yes, marriage and kids, or I want to throw you back in the pond and let me go fishing again for somebody new because I would really like to have a partner by the time I'm bringing a kid into the world.
I would like to have a partner, but like I said, I'd like to have the right partner. I'm not that concerned with getting married. I'm concerned with marrying the person that I love, and since he's the person I love, I would, of course, like that that's something that he wants as well. But if he doesn't, I'm not that concerned with, growing older alone or any of those things. I like my life when he's here, and I like my life when he's not here. So I like my life. And like I said, I'm prepared to surround my child with loving grandparents and uncles and those things so that they have, the love and support they need, even if I don't have the particular partner by that point. But, no, I mean, in terms of how long are you willing to stick with somebody, I mean, I think that depends on if you're getting out of the relationship what you need. If what you need is a marriage, then no, then I probably wouldn't stay. If you're saying that people, have a set date in mind by the time that they should be married or how long you should stay with someone before they should ask you, I mean, but I never had that. Like I said, when I first met him, he was honest enough to say that he, wasn't ready for a committed relationship. And somewhere in the middle, he said that he was ready for a committed relationship but still wasn't sure that he wanted to get married. I think as long as you're open and honest and communicative about what you both want, and as long as that matches at some point, then that works. At the point that it no longer matches, like it, kind of doesn't with us at this point, then you do have to make a lot of hard decisions about what you want for your life because you can't make the choices for them. I'm never going to give him an ultimatum and say, marry me tomorrow or we're through, because that's not the objective. But I will say that at some point I have to decide what works for me. And if at some point I don't feel like I'm getting enough out of this or that I'm going to be forced to put my dreams on hold in order to just stay with this person, then he'll have to go. And I'll be heartbroken, but I'll live. I'll survive. I've had my heart broken before. That's the good thing about heartbreak. At some point you realize your heart can be broken, and it does heal. It just takes time, but you'll get over it. You'll get over it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to let him or anybody else stop me from having the life that I want to have. I would like him to be a part of it. But like I said, if he's not part of it and he's not ready to be part of it, by the time that I decide that I really need to have children now and I need to move on with my life, then he has to go.
I mean, I think that time would be interesting. I'm kind of curious what happens because I also wonder, hey, you've been accepting of one another all these years, living together. I mean, you guys are pretty much married, minus the paperwork. I mean, I don't really know what the difference is, but so I wonder if it comes to the point that it's like, hey, you know what, 40's nearing, and this is the time that I kind of maybe set out for myself, that I'm ready to have a kid, I'm super healthy and this and that and whatever, and I'd like to adopt, or, rather than having your own or whatever you want to do. And I'm wondering if there, I mean, I kind of wonder if it's just like, hey, this is what you do with your part of the life, and then he does something else with his part of the life, but you guys are still together. You know what I'm saying?
That's possible. I mean, I remember, the thing about adoption is I remember when he moved to Virginia about 3 years ago, I had already started filling out adoption paperwork. I was looking at all these adoption websites. I thought, if he's gone, if he's, going to Virginia and he's doing his life, maybe this is what I need to do. And, I had all my friends, including my ex-boyfriend who lives up the street, sign up as references for me to adopt a child. And he was fine with that because I said to him, what happens if I adopt this kid and you come back? And he said, then we have a kid. and he's fine with that, then we just have this kid. Because it's your kid. I mean, so, I think that, like I said, I mean, so far, so good in terms of we accept each other, but I also have to accept his limitations. And one of his limitations may be that he will never be one of those guys who ever wants to get married. And the question is, can I live with that? As a single person, I can live with that. As a parent to a child, I would not want my child to grow up in a house where we just live together and aren't married. So he would have to go. Now, whether we would still date each other.
What's your reasoning behind that? What's your reasoning behind that? If you live in the same house, you have a kid, it's either his or not his, but...
Because we're either a family or we're not. If you can accept all the trappings of being a family, because I want my kid to have somebody who's as committed to them as they are to me. And while I can accept that we're not legally married, so therefore he can go at any time, I would not put my child in a situation where he's not legally bound to them and can just disappear at any time.
Mm-hmm.
I just wouldn't do that. I think that a child deserves to know that that's their parent, to bear their name, and to have the security of knowing that no matter what happens between their parents, that person will still always be there. I'm not saying he's the kind of man that would disappear simply because he didn't have, that piece of paper and the child didn't bear his name, but I would want that for my child, just to know, because I think they deserve to know.
It's interesting because the claim is like on the child having that, but not necessarily the claim on you having that for yourself, at least not up to this point.
Yeah, I don't need to have his name to know that I'm loved. I don't need to necessarily be his wife to know that he's committed to me. I don't need those things. But I think that when you have children, you have to be less selfish. You have to think about what their needs may be, how that may affect them. Even just the embarrassment thing of going to school and being like, how come everybody in your house has a different name? I think that they deserve to have a name, to have a name and to know this is their name and this is their dad and this is the person who claims them. And so, yeah, I mean, without being able to claim them as their own, I don't think that that's fair to a child. What I'm willing to accept as an adult is something totally different than a child who has no say. As an adult, I can decide that I want to walk away at some point, and so can he. But as a child, they don't understand why some adult would just leave them behind. And that is not a position I would put any child in.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, have you read this book? It's called Unprotected.
No.
It's by, yeah, I would make a note. I think you'd find it really interesting. I read it in like 3 hours the other night, which I was amazed because I don't think I've ever read a book that quick. It is by this psychiatrist, and she's a psychiatrist. I think she was at Columbia, or something or other. I don't know. But, she was just talking about how women, the chapters were set up as stories about like case studies, and she disguised her patient's name. She's a college therapist, and people came in and they were sharing stories about STDs and about statistics about like what the truth is really about, like how long a woman can really wait until she can get pregnant and give birth and things like that. And I really found the book so fascinating on so many different levels. And the one chapter was talking about how in our society, we see all these famous people giving birth in their 40s and older, and how that's really just very unrealistic. That we're raised to be like men, to go after our career, work hard, things like that. But if you have in your life plans that you do want to have a family too, that you really need to plan for this early on. And She was just kind of sharing statistics. She said that, we're just really falsely informed by the media that you can give birth so late into life, and that you really, like, these fertility clinics are filled with women that are healthy women that are taking care of themselves, and that it's just talking about how they go through like absolute hell, and it's just like so much money, like at least $15,000 to go through each of these procedures, and how it's like such hell going through it.
Sure. I mean, it wreaks havoc on your body. I mean, it's really, it's certainly not an easy process. I mean, look, you're better off having a baby before 35. After then, your eggs, the quality of your eggs go down. You're born with all the eggs you'll ever have, and so you have less of them. So you have a lot of things. I mean, yes, if women really want to go after their career, be smart. If we told them, freeze your eggs. If you freeze them while they're young, well, the eggs are young and healthy, guess what? You can still have a healthy baby at an older age.
Yes, she said that's misinformation also. She was saying that it's not really effective. The book was just really, really fascinating. It was really eye-opening for me. And, they were saying that these things that we're told about the freezing of the eggs, it slows it down, but it's not that you can wait super long.
Oh, no, you still don't have forever. It's not like you can wake up at 50 and go, I'm just going to use those eggs from 25, and it's going to be a 25-year-old. And your body's still that 25-year-old. You're putting it back at a 50-year-old body. So your hormone level is still off.
Basically, like what I took from the book was that really after you turn 30, it goes like it goes downhill, like your fertility goes down, and then once you hit 35, then it goes down way more. So really, by the time you're 40, it's kind of like you're closed up, like shop is closed up, and there's possibilities, and there's stories that you hear, but she's talking about that. She says that those are exceptions to the rule rather than the rule. And I think it's kind of just depressing. It was a little bit depressing, just hearing the story of this woman who was kind of having a panic attack before her 39th birthday. That there was no man in her life. She didn't want to adopt. She wanted to have a partner and have a family, and it just was not going to be happening for her. And I think that's really interesting that, especially living in New York, like the New York lifestyle, and that there's just so many women out there in their 30s and their 40s that just kind of miss it, like these successful women. She was interviewing some successful women, and all of them did not have kids, and she thought it was all by choice, that they didn't want to have a family, but they waited too long.
Right. I mean, that happens to a lot of women. That you think you have all the time in the world, or you're so busy focusing on your individual success or your individual goals that, you actually don't either make time for dating or you don't make time for family. There are a lot of women who are choosing not to have children, but even for those who wait and decide that they're waiting for the perfect scenario to have a child, you have to decide which is more important, the perfect scenario or having the baby. Because ultimately, if you meet a man who loves you and wants to be with you and you have a child from a previous relationship, he'll be there anyway. The question is, what's more important to you? And I think that we're not geared to make those decisions. Like you said, for me also, I had the idea, still do, that I'd have a child with the person that I want to be with. Again, I suppose if I just wanted to have children, to have a baby, I could have had a baby. There's nothing, there's certainly nothing stopping me from having a baby. But I would rather do it, with the right person at the right time. But I'm not willing to sacrifice it and not actually do that at all. But yeah,
there's just one child, or you want to have two or more, or what's the thought?
I don't know how many children it takes to make a family. For me, I would be grateful for one child at this point because I have none. One is better than none. I don't know. I never had a dream. Again, I'm not one of those people. I never had the dream of, 2.5 kids or any of those things. I just always knew that at some point I wanted to be a mother. If I could have one child with the person that I love that was a combination of us and adopt other children, then I think that would be the perfect compromise to all of that. Because, realistically at this age, am I even going to want to have more than one kid at 37 years old? No, probably not. I think probably not. I'm going to eke out the one, and be glad for that. I don't know that I would put my body through that either, because I would want to see my kids grow up. The chance of gestational diabetes and lots of other illnesses go up after that age, and so I wouldn't risk my health in order to have just to have the number of kids that I wanted to have. One healthy baby, and I'm still healthy, and we can still raise a child together would be good enough for me.
Let's talk about your book for a second here. The women that you interviewed in your book, Do any of them, did you cover any stories of them, are most of them just career women, or they have kids too, or what are some scenarios that you could share?
We went through a whole array of it, because what people don't understand is, again, being single is a transitional thing. You could be married. There were married women in there who were divorced. There was one girl who decided to be a single mother. She'd been dating a guy for about 6-7 years and found out that she was pregnant and realized he'd be a good father, but he was not going to be a good husband because he wasn't ready to grow up at that point. So she chose to be a single mother. There are women in there who candidly talk about, look, hey, I waited too long. I worked on my career. I didn't focus on dating because building my business or building my brand was what was more important. And I woke up one day and I realized I'm 43 and I don't have a child. That's okay, then I'll just date a man with a child because I can be a mother that way. They've just found out other ways to do that. There's a woman in there who decided to adopt a child on her own. As she got older, she said, I'm almost 38 years old, and so she was in the process of adopting a child on her own because she decided she still wants to be a mother. Having a child of her own probably isn't in the cards, so she was going to adopt a child. And then, there are women in there who said, I never wanted children. I just wasn't honest enough. I thought as a woman I was supposed to want to be a mother, and when that never kicked in, I thought, what the heck is wrong with me? So there was an array of women, women who didn't want to have children, women who did it on their own, women who were married and divorced and found themselves as single mothers and never thought that would happen to them. And are finding themselves raising children alone, and women who are still desperately interested in being mothers, but realizing that, again, everything in life is a trade-off. And so for some of them, success meant that they won't have children because they're a little past the age of having children. And for a few of them, there's still time. They're 36, 37, 38 years old, and they're still hoping that Mr. Right comes along and they have their children. But you'll find that some of the women in my book, some of the women that I didn't work this hard just to get married, say, look, I'm going to have children anyway, so maybe, I shatter my parents' dreams that it's not going to be, the Mr. in this sentence, not my husband. It's just going to be a man that I trust, or I'm going to the sperm bank and I'm going to figure out how to be a mother, because to me, ultimately, that's what I was put on this planet to do. And so you find an array of women. I just hope that women realize that you do have options. No matter what it is, you still have options. Now, you may run out of options of having your own biological children, but if you want to be a mother, there are ways that you can do that. You just have to buck tradition. I think that the hardest part for most women is not having that picture-perfect ending where the man that you marry is standing there and he's the father of the perfect 2 kids in the picture frame, and that's what we have.
Yeah, I think that women are just under so much pressure because it's what you feel in your heart, what you want to go after, and then it's also, the tradition, like you were saying, it's the traditional story that sticks in our culture. And what are your thoughts as far as how do we change that? How do we, because I think that works against women. I really do.
Yeah, but it does. It absolutely does. I told them, honestly, the odd part is that men do the asking. Here's the sad part. Men do the asking, and they seem to be asking less and less, because even when you ask all these career women, if they ever imagine this for their life, they will say no. And it's mainly because the men in their lives, even the men that were there at the time when they were dating and building their careers, didn't stop them on their career path and ask them. So we really have to first change the culture where men are no longer asking, where men think that their kid's in a candy store and that they've got all the time in the world. But we also have to change women's perceptions as well, that if you want something out of life, whether it's career or otherwise, you've got to find a way to have that. And unfortunately, if that means bucking tradition, then you may have to do that as well, which may be hard and may draw scorn from your friends and your family and sometimes even your religious leaders. But at the end of the day, it's about your happiness and having the life that you were meant to have, rather than sacrificing everything and finding out you have nothing that you ever wanted. You have to make real, true decisions about, what it takes for you to be happy. And if what it takes for you to be happy sometimes cause other people a little bit of discomfort, then, you have to grow a little bit of a thicker skin. And I think for women, that's the tough part. We don't want to disappoint anybody. We don't want to let anybody down. We don't want to embarrass anybody. But ultimately, the biggest person you're letting down is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when all of those other people are gone at night, the only person you have to face in the mirror is yourself. And if you don't like what you see and you don't like the life that you have, those people can't help you.
So what's the plan for this book? Because I kind of see you holding support groups or something in the city.
No, actually I don't. I actually don't have any. I really, I don't. I don't really, it's funny. I mean, there have been things written about the book, but I really haven't held any talks. But I find that when people do come to the readings, they usually have things that they want to say, and they're just glad to see other women that are like them, that there are at least women out there that you may not agree with the option that woman chose, but you're glad to hear that somebody's making some choices. I don't know.
It's really important that everyone has support. I think that, and that's one of, the reasons that why I have this show is just that, you're not alone. Whatever this situation you're going on in, if it's going on in your life, you're not alone. So I think that you have this vehicle, you have this book now, people are listening. I haven't read it yet, but I'm excited to go read it. And by the way, before we run out of time here, because we have 5 minutes left, tell everybody, where do you want them to go to get the book? You want them to go to your website, Amazon, the bookstore, where?
Yeah, I mean, there's actually, you can buy I Didn't Work This Hard Just to Get Married at any bookstore around the country. It's being sold at Barnes & Noble. It's, of course, being sold online at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. But if you want to read something from it beforehand, just even the introductory essay, which is interesting because it talks about all the images we see and why we all believe that we're supposed to get married, you can do that on my website, which is mcbeeman.com. And you can read something about the book and look at the video trailer and hear a little bit about some of the other women that are in the book. But, mostly I hope that what women do is they get together with their other girlfriends and stop feeling so weird about talking about the things that we're all talking about is where is he? If he's supposed to be here, where is he? And since he's not here, what do we do now to be happy?
I think that's the big question is since he's not here now, because, I teach how to manifest love, how to draw him to you. So, yeah, you do manifestation techniques, but also part of that is also once you do the manifestation techniques, you need to be in this flow and be patient for him to show up.
Absolutely.
So, if you go into panic mode, then you're defeating all this work that you've done to attract him to you. So I think the key is if he's not here now, and the idea is not to just do nothing, but if he's not here right now, then yeah, what do I do? Because you could definitely make yourself miserable. That's
absolutely. You should be the best you can be because happy people usually draw other people to them. Nobody wants to be around a miserable person, so learn to love yourself, learn to like yourself, and get out there. You're not going to meet him at home. Unless he's showing up at your doorstep. That's my parents' favorite.
That's my parent. I'm not going to debate you on that last comment, but that's my parents' favorite comment. And it's not 100% true, but it is definitely one of those. It's definitely one of those thoughts or those myths that's out there that you're not going to meet him at home. But obviously now we have the internet and things like that, so you can
absolutely meet him
at home.
That's right. Even when you're home, but you're not at home because you're being active. You're getting out there. You're letting people know that you're out there. Right. A lot of times we come home and we're closed off, like you said, we're miserable and we're sad and we're lonely and we don't talk to anybody. You also have to let your girlfriend know you're looking. She may know somebody. You never know. Let people know you're open to finding someone to love because sometimes they don't know that you're open to that.
Yeah. I wanted to thank you for coming on the show. I love to hear you speak. It's really interesting to me and it just kind of it confirms a lot of the stuff that I think about too. So thank you for that. And I definitely want to know when you're speaking in New York, and I really am looking forward to I definitely see you having some kind of teaching, classes or support groups or something. I definitely think there's an extension to your book.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I feel like it's so needed out there now, too. Yeah. So, everybody, that was Mika. Thank you once again. And everybody, tune in next week. Once again, I'm having my spiritual teacher on the air. She's going to be talking about finding a man who lets you pursue your dreams, who lets you be free. And that's, once again, Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. If you click the favorite button, you'll be reminded of it. I wanted to thank everybody for listening. And until next week, I wish you all the best in love. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Love Life Heart Confessions with intuitive heart healer, the love guru, Blaire Allison. Blaire can be found on the web at loveguru.net and datingtipsfordudes.com. You can also connect with Blaire on Facebook and Twitter. See you there.